Hey, what's up, people? This video is a step-by-step follow-along routine for squat mobility. If you're getting ready for squats for the day, this routine will help you get nice and mobile in the hips so you can get a deep squat. If you want to permanently increase your squat mobility, do this routine 2 or 3 times through, 2 or 3 times a week, and you'll start to see that payoff by your hips almost touching the ground when you squat. But before we get started, shameless plug, we stream a live class just like this every week on Upright Live. On April 1st, we're going to be streaming a live class directly to you on YouTube at 10 a.m. So if you're watching this before that date, please join us. You can get on, ask live questions if we have time, and it's a good question. I'll answer your question right there on the spot. If you sign up for Upright Live before end of day April 1st, you'll get 2 weeks for free. Check the description box below, follow the links. Let's get to it. All right, so the equipment you're gonna need for this routine are some mini bands that go around your knees and feet. Probably some lighter ones are better. Something heavy that can anchor you to the ground. We got a nice heavy kettlebell here. You could potentially use the side of a couch or a banister, something that's not gonna move on you. And you might need some props for the stretches we're gonna do, so it might be helpful to have your hips up off the ground. You could potentially pull cushion off your couch, use some yoga blocks, whatever you got. All right, let's get to it. So we're gonna start out with some sitting clamshells or some sitting banded abductions. Who cares what they're called? We're just gonna sit down on something, ideally something about knee height, so you can sit with your thighs horizontal to the ground. Put that band either above or below the knees. Now, you might have done something similar to this before. We're gonna get really intentional with how we do this though. So when I want you to set up with your feet facing forward, very important. And also, as we do this exercise, we need to make sure that the big toe knuckle stays on the ground, because as you move your knee out here, a lot of people have the tendency to roll to the outside of the foot. No, we wanna keep connected there so that your glute can function best. Cool? Because what we're after here is the glute max. Who wants a bigger butt? This is how you do it.
I do. I want a bigger butt.
So let's go ahead and do some reps. So he's going to stay connected here. He's going to rotate his knees out, stretching the band as far as you can go without that big toe knuckle coming off the ground. Now, it's really important as you do this exercise to make sure you're feeling your butt work. You can feel this in the side of the leg. It's not wrong, but proportionally, I would like your butt to fatigue before the side of your leg. How do you do that? Pretty simple fix here. If you're feeling the side of the leg, you're probably thinking about pushing your knees apart. What I want you to think about is pulling your knees apart. So the intention within yourself is to try to pull your hips, your knees apart, and pull your hips forward. So I'm pulling from the backside. This is actually what's happening. Your glutes are pulling your thighs apart. Cool? So we'll do 10 to 15 reps of those. If you can do more than 20, your band is too light, so you need to get a stronger band. Cool? Done with 10 to 15. Let's move on. Next up, you're gonna go into a frog position. So the frog position is a pretty common stretch here that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. We're gonna do a variation of it where you're gonna put the band actually around your feet. It's better if it can go actually around the feet. So between your heel and your toes, okay? And then you're going to come down to your knees and elbows. And so when we're starting, I want your knees to be maybe not as far apart as they can go, but about 95% of that range of motion for you. And I want your hips in line with your knees. So Chris is doing a really good job. Knee and hip are in the exact same plane, and feet are pretty close together. Now here's what we're doing. Chris is going to pull that band apart with his feet, okay? Now, what I want you to make sure you're doing is I wanna see your feet, your toes not drag on the ground. I wanna see your feet actually come off the ground as you pull that band apart. So lift the feet. That's gonna ensure you're rotating inside the hip joint. What you should be feeling is a lot of stuff happening on the outside of the hip here, okay? We're turning on those internal rotators. So we worked on external rotation with the sitting clamshell. This is internal rotation. Both are important for the squat. So as Chris progresses in this exercise, I'm gonna have him do one of two things, and we can kind of decide as we go how we wanna manipulate the variables, but he can either slide his knees further apart and continue, or he can bring his hips closer to his heels and continue. Both of them make it harder. Yeah. I'm getting groans over here. Both of them make it harder. You decide which one you want to try first, and try them both eventually. Cool? So same thing. If you can do more than 20 reps here, your band is too light. You should be around 10 to 15 reps. Cool? All right.
Cool.
Next, we're going to work in the 90-90 position. Now, this is really hard for a lot of people. I understand. It's still hard for me. I'm starting to feel comfortable in it, but it's been a long process. That's why having something to get your hips up off the ground is going to be really helpful. So the way you properly prop yourself up in a 90-90 is you put your prop under your front leg hip. So right now my right leg is forward. I have this prop here right under my right hip, and my sits bone is sitting on top of it. Also, it's very important to have the back hip free, because there's going to be a lot of movement in that back hip, and we don't want to be pinned by something. So my back hip, if you can see from behind, my right hip is sitting on the prop. My left hip is completely off, so it's free to move. Okay? Cool. So we're going to start out with some pigeon hinges. Okay? So I'm sure many of you are familiar with pigeon. We're going to be doing a variation of pigeon in 90-90. Here's our goal. Our goal is to bring the chest and belly button forward towards the wall in front of you as far as you can go. Okay? Now let's get really intentional with what's happening here. Come back up, Chris. So before Chris even starts to go down, he's going to begin to press his knee into the ground. That's what's going to turn on the musculature on the backside, the same muscles we're going to be stretching. I want those active as we go into the stretch. So he's pushing down through his knee, also through the ankle, and he hinges forward, okay? And you can see he's shaking now because he's pushing. So all those muscles that he's stretching on the backside are also working. We're going to hold here for 5 seconds and then press back out. Cool? The cadence on this one is about 2 or 3 seconds on the way in, hold for 5 seconds, and then about 2 or 3 seconds on the way out. 3, 4, 5, boom, out nice and slow, control, good. What we're looking for is control. We'll do about 5 to 10 reps of that and then switch sides. Last one here and we'll switch, Chris. Nice, good. Notice his spine staying really straight. Go ahead and switch sides. One common fault we'll see is people thinking about how far they can fold, and so their intention goes into their head, and they try to bring their head to the floor. It doesn't help us in any way to curl the back over so that you get in this position where it looks really cool, but this is the same exact stretch on my hip, even though my head's not touching the ground. So let's double dip and work on some nice neutral spine while we're going into the stretch. Cool? Chris is showing some excellent control. Now, remember, you might need props. I'd highly recommend props. If you're finding that you can't get your torso to about 45 degrees from the floor, then you probably need to prop yourself up. Cool? Because we'd like to get to at least 45 degrees there. Now, if we want to add some intensity here, if this seems really easy, Chris can reach his hands forward in front of him, still keeping his spine straight. Imagine he's trying to reach for the wall in front of him. That's going to add a lot more tension onto that hip, so you can get a deeper stretch. Cool? All right, go back to your other side. Now we're going to work on the back leg. Internal rotation. Can you switch? Cool. So we're working on the leg that's in internal rotation, okay? We're going to work on some active eccentric motion into internal rotation. So what this involves is, come forward, Chris is gonna push his foot into the ground hard. This ankle that's touching the ground, pushing through that ankle. So you're driving that ankle into the ground. And now as he pushes there, he's going to sit his hip deeper towards the ground. So it's not just down, it's also back. Down and back. 5-second hold. And then come on out. Boom. So similar to how we did those pigeon hinges, you're gonna move in slowly, hold for about 5 seconds, and then press out slowly. Always pushing down through the ground. That's what's gonna keep your hip nice and safe here. If you have problems with internal rotation, you're probably gonna be propped up pretty high here. So make sure you're using this. And this is why we want that back hip free. Switch sides and do the prop with this side. This is why we want this back hip free, so it can move forward and back without being restricted by, touching your prop there. So if you are finding that you have to lean way out to the side to get here, then you probably just need to prop yourself up even higher. Cool? I'd like to see your spine be mostly vertical here, not a whole bunch of twisting and contorting to try to get into the 90-90. Should be fairly relaxed. All right? Couple more. We'll do one more after this, Chris. You should feel, when you're doing this, you should either be feeling some sensation out here on the lateral hip or right on the adductors, which are these like inner thigh groin muscles here. So sensation is good. Pinching, bad. Don't go into pinching. Just work on the strength portion of that. Stop before pinch. Cool? All right. Next up, we got the 90-90 lift or shin box lift. So we're still working at 90-90. One more exercise here. So 90-90 lift or shin box lift is we're gonna come up and out of our 90-90. So just like what Chris did. So here's how we're gonna be intentional with this one. It's usually really easy for people to use the front leg in this. So we're gonna put our intention into the back leg so that we end up using the legs fairly equally, okay? So Chris is going to, just as we did in that last exercise, push through the ground with his back foot and also turn to look at his back foot, okay? So he's putting weight over that back foot, and if you, ideally, if you could even put your hands over that foot a little bit, it'll add even more weight so that you can push harder through that back leg. Then we're gonna press through that back foot equally as through the front leg, up and out, boom, and you can rotate out, look the other way. But as you sit, we're gonna try and get our weight back over that back foot, sit slowly, under control, all the way to the ground, and rest, okay? Again, you're probably gonna need props for this if you're trying this for the first time. So use a bunch of props, please, please, please. I want your spine to be able to stay mostly straight while we do this. Cool? You're gonna do, ideally, you can go fairly quick on the way up, 1 to 2 seconds, but really slow on the way down, 5 seconds on the way down. And I want you counting in 1/1000s. I don't want any bad counting here. Cool. About 5 to 10 reps there. And if you want to be, if this is pretty easy, you want to get a little loco, you can add weight. So you can hold a kettlebell, dumbbell, even like a plate, and you can do these weighted. Nice, good control. Make sure you're always pressing through that ankle. Sometimes what we'll see here is if your heel is too close to your butt. So if this heel comes too close to your butt, you can sometimes get away with using your quad to push you up rather than using your hip muscles to rotate to press you up. So try to keep that heel further away from your butt. That'll ensure you're using the rotator muscles to do that. Cool? All right. Whew. We're done with that. Now, let's do some squatting. So we're gonna do what we like to call the anchored squat. So you're gonna need something that's not gonna move too easily. So a heavy weight, again, you could use the side of a couch, a banister, whatever you got. Because we're gonna be anchoring ourselves to something and we need to be able to pull on it and it not fall. Cool? All right, so here's what we're gonna do. First off, let's talk about the squat. When you squat, it is important that your feet face more forward and your heels stay on the ground, whatever that means to you. So if you have limited ankle range of motion, or if you just feel more comfortable, it's okay to have your feet turn out, but over time, we'd like to see that your feet can face a little bit more forward. So if we're working on, hip and squat mobility, let's go to more of an ideal position with the feet just a little more straight than you're used to. Cool? All right, next. Wherever the toes face, your knees need to face. So you never want to see the knee pointing inwards of your second or third toe. So we're thinking the middle of the foot, knee needs to point over the middle of the foot. All right, here's what we're gonna do. Chris is gonna grab on to his anchor, okay? However, it doesn't really matter yet. And then he's going to sit into a squat, bringing his butt down, pulling on this anchor. So he's actually actively pulling on it, okay? So now, what we get to do because we have an anchor is we get to pull ourselves into a deeper position than you can normally go into. You can come up if you want, if you're getting tired. So you can see Chris already has a pretty good squat mobility, but because he's holding onto this, he can pull his hips really far forward. Now, I want you to get tall, squeeze your butt, and then slowly start to let go and see if you can maintain that position, and then stand up. Oh God. Bam. You can see he's struggling right now. That's what we wanted. If you're shaking, it means you're in the right spot. All right, so let's go again.
How far?
Ideally, whatever anchor you're using, probably about 1 foot to 2 feet in front of you. You want your arms mostly straight at the bottom. You don't want to be like too scrunched up. Okay, so you're gonna pull yourself deep into your squat. What I want you thinking about is how can you get taller? So pull the top of your head up to the ceiling above you, pull your hips forward, squeeze your butt, squeeze your abs, and then slowly start to let go and see if you can hold that position and then stand up. Good. Last thing, make sure you can breathe in that position. So holding that position for a few seconds after you let go of that anchor and take a breath. See how it feels. Cool? So Chris is breathing. A lot of tension. Glutes are fired. Core's fired. Good. Nice and extending the spine. Nice. All right. Cool. Last step. So you're going to do that for 3 to 5 reps. Last rep, I want you to, if you're using a weight, instead of let go of the weight, pick it up, stand up, and now you're ready to squat. Cool? Boom. Slowly pick that weight up and stand up. All right. Now, if you're about to go do a squat session, I'm sure your squat's gonna feel money. It's gonna feel real. You're just gonna slide right into that bottom position. Cool?
And your butt's gonna get bigger, right?
Butt's definitely gonna get bigger.
Possibly.
Side effect of squatting. Follow this routine one time through if you're getting ready to do squats or some lower body movements. But if you wanna increase your hip mobility permanently, you should probably be doing this 2 to 3 times through, 2 to 3 times a week at least. We do this every week in our Upright Live class. So if you found this helpful, check us out. The link's gonna be in the description box apparently.
I'll post links
I don't know how YouTube works.
There'll be links everywhere.
Cool.
You can't miss it. Also, if you really enjoyed this routine, right after this, we're gonna post a screenshot of the actual routine so you could follow along. If you want a more in-depth look at the routine, you're gonna have to join the Upright Live class. You won't regret it.
As always, pain sucks, life shouldn't. Later.
Took my line.
Beat you to it. Are we going? Are we going? Let's get to it.